Welcome to the Cat's Tale. This is the first video in the series which aims to give any player a complete introduction to competitive Genius Invocation, from basic to advanced concepts. I'm making this guide because out of all the videos of Genius Invocation on YouTube, I could really find nothing designed to just explain the detailed strategy of how to play and win a game against another player. There's a lot of depth to the TCG, to the point where a good player can get consistent 5-win finishes in the arena mode, with even just a starter deck. I'm not the very best player there is, but after some decent finishes in tournaments in EU, and after some people showed interest in the idea, I decided to put together footage for my tournaments with some explanations. With the time it took, I hope at least someone finds it useful. In this video, we're going to look at the most important resource in the TCG, and how to be efficient with your dice. However, if you feel comfortable with the basics, feel free to jump ahead to the later videos in the series. Like many card games, Genius Invocation is a game about managing your resources. The three most important resources are the health of your characters, your elemental dice, and your cards. These resources allow you to take actions which affect the game state, in particular, swapping between characters, using your character's skills, and playing cards, all with the ultimate goal of eliminating all your opponent's characters. Having more cards, and having more characters healthy and alive to use their skills, is great because it gives you more options. But your elemental dice are the most important of all your resources, because you need to spend dice to actually make use of all of these options. This is opposite to how you might think about other card games like Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, where your cards are the essential resource, but you need mana to play your cards. And this is partly why card draw is less important in Genius Invocation compared to other TCGs. More powerful cards and abilities have a higher cost in dice, and the more dice an option needs, the stronger it is. So if you're not spending all your dice, you are fundamentally doing something less strong, less powerful than you could be. We can see some obvious examples of this if we compare some similar cards. For example, Sweet Madame is a 0-cost food, which heals 1 health, but Hash Brown, which costs 1 die, heals 2 health. Even more powerful cards have an even higher cost, such as Favonius Cathedral, that could heal a total of 4 health over 2 turns. If you had a choice over which one to play, you should choose the one which uses your dice effectively, and get the most powerful effect. Another obvious example is these two skills of the character Rodea of Locke. The 5-cost skill does literally twice the effect of the 3-cost skill, so it's often very worth using if you can afford to spend the dice on it. Many other cards are a great way of spending dice which would otherwise be wasted, such as Liban, and low-cost food cards like Mushroom Pizza. More often than not, if you have the dice left over and nothing else to do but waste them, then it is worth playing a card even if it seems inefficient or it doesn't have an immediate effect. The most important lesson to take away from this is that you must always plan how you could use your dice at the start of each turn, and try to make sure you use all or almost all of your dice every turn. Let's have a look at how we can apply these ideas in an actual game. So for these first few videos, I'm just going to be using a modified version of the starter deck with the 3 characters who are given to start off, Diluc, Gaia, and Sucrose, just to keep things nice and simple and show these ideas apply to any deck. Then I've just filled the deck with cards that are just quite good cards. And we're going to see how it goes in the arena format. And the focus is going to be on making sure we plan every turn to make sure we can use all of our dice effectively, get a win here. So in this case, we've got Live in our starting hand, which will eventually allow us to make efficient plays, and I guess I'll go and keep that, along with some fixing to potentially allow us to use our dice on our skills, even if they're not the right element. Opponent's playing a very powerful deck,
ready when you
so
are.
we'll have to see if our hopefully superior gameplay can get us there. So I'm rolling to make sure I can have some good dice, in this case fairly lucky. I can use potentially both Kaya and Sucrase's abilities, even on the first turn. So I'm going to plan my turn. It would be nice to play this card before I use any other skills, but actually on this turn I'm quite likely to want to play Catherine and swap, which would leave me with only enough dice to use 2 skills and none left over. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just use Kaya's skill. Going to avoid talking about too advanced concepts in these first few videos, but of course there are deeper thoughts going on all the time in terms of what my game plan is, what my opponent's game plan is, and how I can likely consider things like denying elemental reactions, which is something we'll cover in a future video. But for now, there you go. I'm going to use my dice nice and efficiently. Make sure I can spend down to 0 dice. If I didn't have the right elements, I would have used maybe this event card or maybe this support card, but just continually making sure that I'm spending all my dice. And in this case I remembered not to play the support card first because I didn't have the 1 dice spare. See what opponent chooses to use with their dice, if they're going to be efficient with them. Looks like they can be, although they'll need to make sure they have the right elements to use the skill here. Okay, they have a card to allow them to do that.
Unleash!
Opponent's also in a decent spot here. We're going to get turn priority on the next round, and we'll talk about that in a future video as well. But now I'm just going to think about, okay, it's going to be my turn next. How can I use my dice efficiently on my next turn as well? I'm going to want ideally some anime dice, and there's a few. And it's hard to know if I want other types. Maybe. Here we go. Fair enough. Right. In this case, the skill seems potentially worth using, so I'll just go ahead and do that, I think. Seems worth using my dice on in this situation. Okay, again I'm thinking about planning my turn. I don't know whether I'll necessarily have the 1 die left over for this, because I'm thinking I might need to do a few swaps. And I have several cards in hand ready. I'm planning just to leave some options open.
Let's play!
Okay. Again, I'm okay spending my cards in order to gain an advantage based by making sure I can spend all my dice, because the dice are a more important resource than the cards.
Swirl, Mark 2! No escape from fate.
So in this situation it looks like I am quite likely to have the 1 die spare for my Sealy here, but while I could have played it before using that skill, there are definitely some situations I might want to be prepared for. Okay. Opponent's going first. I could definitely swap here. And it could even not be right to play all these cards. But using the idea of dice efficiency, if I'm unsure, I think it is worth using the cards and not wasting the dice. I should still have a good chance to get value out of both of these before the end of the game. And again, I mean, the most obvious use of my dice would just be to use the skills on my current character. So let's make sure we have enough cards in hand to use a few different skills. I'm just going to keep 2 colours or elements of dice to give me some options. It's just a tiny bit awkward here with the elements I have available, but again, I'm going to make sure prioritizing using my dice, even if I have to use some cards to do so.
Useless. Need to make adjustments.
Let's go.
Again, I can make some efficient use of my dice here. And I am considering how I'm going to keep my use my last 2 dice efficiently by keeping 2 different elements. I can use them efficiently with my Liben here. So while opponent's definitely not piloted his own deck optimally, the point is that, you know, even being comfortable with the basics is good enough to do quite consistently well in this arena format. The Liben here, remember, collected our last 2 dice, allowing us to use those efficiently. And it's worth noting that I didn't worry too much about my other character dying, since, you know, having the access to those skills is nice, but less important than just being efficient with our dice in other plays, especially since I already was able to use those skills to good effect before. So it's worth being a little bit aware of my opponent's possible moves here. And thinking about how I plan out my turn as well. So in this situation, I'm kind of okay just using 3 plus 3 plus 3 for 3 skills, which leaves me with 1 left over, and I have the luxury to play around, you know, a few things that could have killed my dealer, or 1 card in particular. And we'll look around playing around cards and HP breakpoints in a future video as well. But the thing to focus on for now is I have enough dice, even after that play, to still just use my skill here a few more times. Which here is enough to close out the game. So in that game we didn't waste a single die, and that really helped us in securing the win in the end.